Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming to this presentation. I will talk about how quality by design and continuous improvement are really a basis for product quality. I'll start off by introducing myself and the company I work for. Then I'll talk a little bit on how we apply continuous improvement and quality by design in our processes, and then what we can do for you to help you set up your processes or your products in such a way that you have the capsule which suits your product best. So first of all, my name is Karin Schrote. I'm responsible for global quality within Lonza, linked to the legacy Capsugel organization. So Capsugel is actually an organization which was part of different pharmaceutical groups, started off with Park Davis. Park Davis was acquired by Warner Lambert, which was then acquired by Pfizer. So we've been part of Pfizer for quite a while. In 2011, we were divested by Pfizer, and we were part of an equity group, KKR. Then in 2018, July 2018, we were acquired by Lonza, and so we are now part of the Lonza group. How are we known? We are the leader of the two-piece capsules worldwide. Besides the capsules, we have an array of services which vary from formulation services to clinical trials and then commercial manufacturing. And we have partners and customers in more than 100 countries across the world. So we are part of the capsule delivery solutions within Lonza, so serving capsules for the pharmaceutical business. So within Lonza, we are part of LPBN, Lonza Pharma and Biotech, and we are really in the middle between both pharmaceutical customers and the consumer healthcare. Why? We deliver the capsules for both markets. What does make capsules from Capsugel great, or what makes us great, or what is our value which we add? It's really that we have products and services which span over the whole life cycle of your product. So we can offer you support for formulation, we can provide you products for clinical development, for scale-up, and even then for commercial manufacturing. I think our strength is based on the fact that we are, I think historically we were an engineering company, but now we put the engineering and the scientists together, and so that helps us really to provide you with those services and products which hopefully serve you best. Last but not least, we are a global company, and I'll go for that to the next slide. And for the capsules, now I speak about capsules specifically, we leverage that global presence from a supply chain point of view, but also from a quality point of view. So we have 8 manufacturing sites across the world, and you see all of them on the slide. We are present in Europe, in the Americas, and in Asia. And all these sites produce capsules based on the same quality standards. So our key raw materials, which are really the polymers and colorants, are bought according to the same globally aligned purchasing specs. We have globally approved suppliers, and our capsules are released based on the same criteria globally. We do have aligned quality management systems, and actually from a GMP point of view, we follow the IPEC GMPs. All our sites are ISO certified, and we do have a couple of sites which are ExiPact certified. So this is in a nutshell who we are, part of Lonza, but still quite a big, large history producing capsules, and I think the Capsugel brand is a brand which is well known within the pharmaceutical industry. Now, talking about quality by design and how do we apply it within Lonza Capsugel. So, as probably most of you know, quality by design is really a systematic approach to product and process development, and then additionally, there are some control strategies which need to be put in place. So if you look at what the product and process development requires, is that you define, or in the case of capsules, we define, but for a finished drug product, you define what are really the desired product performance, or what is your targeted product profile. With your targeted profile, which could be, I'm going to go and develop a capsule or a product for solid oral dosage, it needs to be, of course, safe. It needs to have a certain efficiency. It needs to do what it's supposed to do. With that, there's a couple of critical to quality attributes which you can define, and we'll come to that later. If you have defined a couple of critical to quality attributes, so attributes which need to be met in order to actually produce the process like you need to design your process and your systems to be able to meet these critical to quality attributes. So for this, the process design is required. And then, of course, once you've defined your critical to quality attributes, you've defined your process, you need to control this, because it's not because you define it like that, it's going to keep on working the way you want it. So that means that in order to control your process, you need to be able to assess what the impact is of certain material attributes on the process and of the process parameters on the critical to quality products attributes. You need to identify those parts of your process you need to control, and you need to identify what variability you can accept. And then you continuously need to monitor your performance and adjust if needed to assure quality. So this is general talk. Now, what about capsules? And if you look then at quality by design, or the process and the product design for capsules, what does it mean? If I look at an empty capsule is really a container. It's a vehicle to transport your API to that part of the body, or to release the product, the API, in that part of the body where you would like it. So that means if I look at what is critical to quality, it means that the container, the properties of the container need to be guaranteed. Of course, then your container needs to disintegrate at a certain moment, because your product needs to be able to be released and dissolved and absorbed by the body. The other part is you want your capsule or your container, you want it to be safe. It needs to be free from impurities, free from contaminants. Defect levels need to be low, because patients or even authorities don't like it when you see a huge smudge on a capsule. Dimensions need to be controlled correctly so that it runs on a high-speed filling machine without any issues. Microbial quality needs to be okay. So I think there's a whole list of what we try to accomplish, or what we believe is the targeted product portfolio for a capsule. That targeted profile will differ slightly when you talk about a capsule which is used for solid oral dosage, or a capsule which is used for inhalation purposes, for instance. When we then look to our process design and development, we've designed our processes really to fit the production of these high-quality capsules. All the equipment we have in-house is developed in-house. All the critical equipment, which means every production machine which produces capsule, every printing machine, we have special metal detectors put in place, inspection systems we put in place. So all the equipment is really fit for purpose. Now, like mentioned before, we also then need to do a risk assessment and control, just to make sure that whatever we thought would work perfectly is actually working perfectly, and also to find a way to keep on improving. Because when you looked at my first slide, first capsules were produced around 1900s. We are now more than 100 years later, and what we did 100 years ago probably doesn't suit us today anymore. So how do we go about this risk assessment and control? It's really built in the complete supply chain. It starts with the capsule design, and I'll go through each of these parts a little bit in more detail later on. It starts with the capsule design, which is fit for purpose. Then the raw material sourcing is critical for our products, because when you talk about absence of impurities, or absence of impurities and product quality, a lot of it is driven by the quality of your raw material. We have the equipment and linked to that process control, and that has allowed us to continuously improve our quality levels over the time. And then as the last part, there are some inspection technologies which we've implemented. As in order to eliminate some smaller defects which might still be present, but also as a part of our control loop, because what we inspect is every capsule. So we have so much data which help us to control our process and optimize our process even further. So that is really part of our quality by design approach. So moving first to capsule design. So this is just a schematic drawing of our ConiSnap capsule. Our ConiSnap capsule is still our most popular capsule. We have some other designs which are maybe more suitable for liquid filling or for other applications, but this is the design which we use for most of the applications. So as you see, a capsule comes in two parts, a body part and a cap part. You do see some features on the capsule which allow for the capsule, first of all, to keep its shape. So if you look at those dimples on the cap side, they really make sure that the capsule remains round. We have an air vent on the body side. On the body side, the air vent really serves to help eliminate air when you fill capsules at a high-speed filling machine. So the excess of air needs to be able to escape in order to guarantee a good performance on the filling machine. And then you see two rings on both body and on both cap. Those rings, once the capsule is closed, those rings actually fall into each other, and then you have a perfectly closed capsule. When we supply the empty capsules, the capsules are actually supplied in a pre-closed position, which means that they need to stay together to run on the filling machine, and you need to be able to open them easily also on that filling machine. So for that, the dimples will fit into the ring, which means that a little bit of vacuum will allow you to open the capsules, and then once they're closed and in the ring position at that time, they're completely closed, and it will be very difficult to open them again, which then guarantees that as a container for your product, it will not open, the capsules will not open, and the container properties will be guaranteed until the patient actually swallows the capsules, or until it's pierced, for instance, in an inhaler device. So the container qualities will be guaranteed until it's actually being consumed by a patient. The second part where we really emphasize the importance of and pay a lot of attention to is our raw material qualification and sourcing. So first of all, when we look at the purchasing specifications of our raw materials, of gelatin or of HPMC, of colorants, what we try to do is we look at the regulatory requirements for these raw materials in the major areas, being Europe, US, Japan, and India is also popping up more and more. We look at the requirements for both pharmaceutical products, but also for food supplements, because as I mentioned at the beginning, our capsules can be used both for pharma and for food. And we actually then select the strictest common denominator of all these regulatory requirements. That actually means that for our suppliers, it's tough to supply the material like we want it. But on the other hand, it also guarantees that the capsules we supply are almost globally accepted. If you want specific areas for the capsule to be marketed in, we might have to change small things here and there, but the majority of the markets are being covered. On top of that, there are some specific Capsugel requirements. So requirements to quality, items which we consider critical to quality to produce a high quality capsule. So our purchasing specs are globally aligned, are quite strict, or are strictest on the market. This is what our suppliers tell us. We also have a very strict supplier qualification process. It takes about I guess it takes about 9 months to a year to actually qualify our suppliers. Why? We start with a preliminary screening. We then do an evaluation, but based on lab scale. We actually then move it a little bit up, and we do a small-scale production trial. We do an extended audit, an on-site supplier audit, and then we produce we need to be able to produce 3 commercial batches, and that actually finishes the qualification process if all of that is done correctly. Once a supplier is qualified, we do continue to monitor them, and we actually have a supplier evaluation process in place, which also includes auditing, in order to guarantee that the level of the raw materials we receive actually is not deteriorating over time, and that we continuously have the quality we require. Moving then to our production environment, and really there also focuses on quality and on prevention for contamination. As mentioned before, our equipment is really designed for quality. So we have one central location within the Lonza network, it's in the US, where we actually produce all of our manufacturing equipment. The big advantage of that is that it's all produced according to our standards. And then whenever there's upgrades, these upgrades are also centrally managed and rolled out across the entire network. It allows us to make improvements and to control these improvements across the entire network, and it allows us to provide you capsules with the same quality standard independent of where they are produced. Continuous improvement is really part of our DNA. I've been working for Capsugel for over 25 years, and we have continuously improved quality. I think it's part of how we work. So basically, our equipment is part of that, but also our process control is part of that. And I'll show you what we've done with defect levels on capsules over these years. From a contamination prevention point of view, of course, we have the raw materials sourcing, where we say, look, we don't want any, or we comply with the elemental impurity guidelines. But in our sites, we have clear zoning concepts. So we have zones where, depending on the zoning, of course, different requirements apply for clothing, for people entrance, for air quality, for handling of product. So that zoning concept is really also guaranteeing that we have separate flows for raw materials and finished products, and that all the flows are segregated. We try to automate, not only because it's more efficient, but also the less people need to intervene in the process and touch product or come into contact with capsules, the less risk for contamination you have. And then what we do also have is that we, between every order or between every preparation of gelatin, we have automated cleaning cycles, cleaning in place cycles, which guarantee that we can actually produce our capsules and comply with the microbial requirements without the addition of any antimicrobial agents. So it's basically correct sourcing of raw materials together with the quality of our utilities, of our water, of our air, and then the GMP practices which we apply, the cleaning practices, that allows us to provide you capsules not only for oral dosage but also for DPI applications without the addition of antimicrobial agents. And then last but not least, we also make sure that every part of the equipment which comes into contact with either the polymer in solution or the capsule is made out of the suitable material. It's food contact safety, which we're looking at. We have several filters installed across the line to eliminate maybe certain particles which might be present. A metal detector, inline metal detector, is available on every line, and this eliminates the smallest parts of metal which might possibly be there. And then, last but not least, all our dipping pins are made out of stainless steel. So there is no risk that small flakes would come off and maybe end up in your product. So this is a schematic drawing of how our manufacturing area looks like, or how the manufacturing flow looks like, yeah? So in each of the stages, and I'll quickly walk you through it and try to let you know what we control, or what controls we have, which are just based on pure in-process controls, and where we monitor certain parameters continuously, because we believe that these parameters are critical to actually obtain the quality of our product. So we start off with the melting stage, which is big vessels where we actually melt the polymer with water. This melting stage is done according to an automated or a standard cycle, where the timing of certain temperatures or the temperature profile during this cycle is critical to actually end up with a material which is going to be suitable to make capsules of. So this melting stage is automated. We do measure, or we do some in-process controls for that, which is like viscosity, temperature, pH, because we know that these parameters will play a role on the further steps in the process. Once we've melted the polymer, we have a natural transparent solution of polymer, and then we add colorants to it, depending on the requirements of the customer. So the colors are added to the smaller tanks, and these smaller tanks are being fed onto the production equipment. These smaller tanks are controlled and adjusted for viscosity, temperature, and the color is controlled. Once we start the capsule manufacturing, the polymers are being fed into 2 dipping baths, one for the body and one for the cap. And actually, we then dip with stainless steel pins into those dipping baths, and this is where you start the formation of the capsule. Because what happens is that the polymer will set itself around the pin, and the way the polymer will set itself around the pin, we circulate those pins so that the distribution of the polymer is evenly around the pin. The way we dip into the gelatin and the way we actually then distribute the polymer around the pins, that is really providing you with the film profile, which is one of the key attributes of your capsule. So it is, and this is our know-how, is the way we actually need to pick up that polymer to guarantee a nice and even distribution of the film around this pin. Once that is done, the machine is quite long, but all that, the capsules are being dried from the beginning of the machine to the end and back, and that's all drying. And what is critical there is, of course, the way you dry. The temperature and the humidity of the air is very important, because the drying, if you dry too fast at the beginning and then you create a crust, it's like a moelleux you make in the kitchen. If you bake that, you have a crust on the outside and you still have some liquid on the inside. If we do that for our capsules, they will not run on your filling machines, and the quality of the capsule will not be great. So we continuously monitor the air quality. We also continuously monitor and adjust the viscosity of the solution in the dish. And so after the drying process, actually the capsules need to be made. So what happens then is that the film has solidified around the pins. The film needs to be stripped of the pins, cut to the right length, and both sides of the capsule are being joined together. So that is happening in the automatic finishing, or in the automatic section. The capsule is then ready for use, but what we do at that moment is we start controlling some stuff. So we control weight, we control moisture level. It's all not the final results yet, but it gives us a good indication of what we will have at the end of the line. At the end of the line, we have a sorting machine, which actually also provides additional drying to get the capsule to the moisture conditions where we actually supply it with, and we have some inspection. After that inspection or sorting machine, we can print the capsules. For the printing of the capsules, what is key is the viscosity of the ink, the quality of the print roll, and then of course the speed of the printing. Okay, so we actually there also have put some controls in place to make sure that print quality is what it needs to be. Also at the print machine, we have an inspection equipment. So over the years, and this is the result of continuous improvement, you see defect levels going down, and you do see all of the different initiatives which we started at one moment or the other to actually drive down defects. Now, somewhere around 2015, defect levels were so low that it was very difficult to improve even further without actually checking every capsule. Because when you take a sample, and you have an accept and reject criteria, accept 0 defects, reject when you see 1. you know that in your batch you might still have some defects. You just can't detect it because your samples are not sufficient. So this is when we started, and we combined actually all the processes I described with an automatic inspection. And that allowed us to actually define new defect or new maximum defect levels going way beyond the AQL levels which are currently known within the market. So what does that bring for you? So we have a capsule where we are sure that there's no pockets of defects available. It allows you to save some time during incoming inspection. Also, risk for consumer complaints or patient complaints will be reduced. But I think what's also very important is that you will have less interruptions in your process. Because whenever you see defects in your process, you probably need to open a deviation, you need to investigate, and depending on how you work, that can cost you a lot of time. So with our Sigma series, like we call it, we guarantee that you don't have to face that issue. For us, it's of course nice to eliminate some defects, but what is also really great is that we have so much data now, which we can use on the one hand to control our process real time, because when the reject rate on my inspection equipment goes up, there's a trigger which goes off at the operator at the front of the machine, and they can start checking what happened. So I think that is great. And on the other side, we have now billions of data points to do trending and to define, again, continuous improvement processes towards the future. So I think all of that was just to tell you that we know how to control our process. We are capable of providing you standard capsules, but because of our process control capabilities, we are also able to customize, which I do think it's of key importance and can be very useful to you. So one size fits all, maybe for some products, yes, but we might have to go through different cycles depending on how you use your product. Because in the end, you also will define some critical quality attributes for your product. We can provide you with an excipient or a capsule which has got certain functionality-related characteristics with some critical attributes, and then you define what is critical for your product. In the end, it's your end product or your patient which needs to get a product which is safe, which actually does what it's intended to do. So that is the quality part. And the efficiency needs to be, it needs to be efficacious, or the efficacy of the product needs to be there. So what options, and this is just an example of options we can provide for capsules we supply to you. So we have our gelatin capsules, which I think are most commonly known. We have VCaps Plus, which are HPMC-based capsules. And then we have the VCaps Enteric. VCaps Enteric are capsules which have an enteric release and comply with USP/JP and EP for enteric or gastro-resistant release. All the other capsules are immediate release. Depending on the capsule type, moisture content will be different, oxygen barrier will be different, and also the dissolution profile might be different. So if you would need to select a capsule, I just want to give you an example of the questions you might ask yourself in order to define which capsule would best fit your needs. So first of all, if you would need an enteric capsule, you can actually still use all the capsules. If you coat, for instance, the pellets, any capsule can serve as a carrier for an enteric product if you have enteric coated pellets. If, however, you don't want to do a coating, then VCaps Enteric might be a good solution for you, because you will protect already there is an enteric release, so normally you might be able to skip maybe some steps in your process. If you just have a capsule for immediate release, then you also can use the VCaps Plus or gelatin capsules. If you know that your product might be sensitive to cross-linking, then VCaps Plus would be better. Because, for instance, gelatin, whenever there's aldehydes present, there is a certain risk for cross-linking. VCaps Plus, this is not the case. And I thought I didn't have too many slides, but I still need to rush. I'm sorry for that. So actually there, depending on the hygroscopic or non-hygroscopic character, we have some opportunities, and we might also customize a bit more. we also, depending on the application, there are different choices for solid oral dosage and for DPI. So I think, and in the end, and because of the time constraints, I think my message to you is really talk to us. We have our standard capsules which have got a basic quality which is great and one of the best in the market. But if you have a specific application, if you have a specific need for your product, working together will enable us both together to define what is the best fit for your product. And I'm sure that we can provide you with a capsule which is better than the standard one then. So thank you.